Hey guys, Mr. Bunn here, and we're going to talk about some graphing. So, for the past couple days, we've been collecting data, on these questions here, talking about amount of sleep and pets and hunger level and all kinds of stuff. So, you're going to create 4 tables and 4 graphs based on this data right here. Now, you don't have edit access, so the first thing you're going to have to do is make a copy and work on your own Google Sheets. But we'll assume through the magic of recording that you've already done that. So the first graph that we want to make is a bar graph, and it's going to be how do boys and girls differ in amount of average sleep per night. And if you're comparing groups, boys and girls, or if you're comparing averages, average amount of sleep, then you're going to want to use a bar graph. So the first thing I want to do is, look at my raw data right here. Okay, I got my boys over here, I got my girls over here, and the raw data is not processed. Okay, I could put all of these in as like 10 different bar graphs, but that's going to be a pain. So the first thing I want to do is calculate my average. Okay, there's a couple ways to do that. I can add them all up, and then divide by the number that I added. So I add them all up and then divide by 8. Or I can highlight them, and then in the bottom right corner, I click, let's move me out of the way, let's make me smaller. I click down in the bottom right corner, and it gives me the average, 8.833. And if you're an 8th grader, I want you to round to hundredths. If you're a 7th grader, I want you to round to tenths. So for 7th graders, the answer is going to be 8.8. So our average 8.8. And the same thing with the girls right here. I can do it by hand, or I can click down here in the bottom and get 8.5. It's already in tenths, so I don't need to round anymore. 8.5. And for the table, I'm not going to report my raw data, just this stuff. I definitely could, but for this assignment, I just want to know the averages. So there's my title right there, and I have gender in the rows, and I have average sleep there in the columns. So all I have to do is highlight it, highlight only what I need, highlight it, and I click the little insert chart. And we only have one group. Okay, there's a simple fix to that. Sometimes if you don't get all your information, the easiest way to, we gotta click the snowman here and get rid of it. But the easiest way to fix this is just to change it around a bit. Okay, so if I put boys here and I put girls here, and I am going to have average sleep of 8.8. If you notice here, the 8.8 is indented to the left. That's because there's something wrong, and it looks like I accidentally put a comma. So if I put my unit right, or if I put the decimal where it goes, then I should fix that. So let's try, oh my gosh, I'm doing the same exact thing. Get rid of that. Let's try kind of flipping it around. Okay, boys, girls, and here the average was 8.8 hours, here 8.5 hours, and I can copy my title here and paste it, and let's see if that helps. Okay, I select just what I need, I flipped it over, and I still have something wrong. Okay, so I'm going to go in and delete that title. Okay, I go in, I delete it, and again, Google Sheets is awesome, but it can be kind of a pain to figure out, up front, like what we're doing here. So insert my chart, and I have a pie chart. I don't want a pie chart, so I'm going to click Setup, and I'm going to make it my nice bar chart here. Okay, now I'm definitely not done. All right. First of all, I need to include a title. To do that, I go to Setup, Edit Chart. I'm going to click Setup, and it's not there, but I click Customize, and I can click Chart and Axis Titles. I click Chart Title. There we go. And the easiest thing for me to do is just copy the title of of my table there. Okay, so again, edit, customize, chart and axis titles, chart title, and I can just paste it in there. Now, of course, it's not going to be called Table 1. This is going to be my first graph, so it's going to be simply Graph 1. Graph 1. How do boys and girls differ in average amount of sleep per night? So I definitely want to make sure it's descriptive. What do we do? Well, we're comparing. How do they differ? My independent variable is going to be just the gender, boys and girls, and it's down here on my x-axis. And then average amount of sleep per night. Okay, I definitely want to put my units in there. So I'm going to scroll over, average amount of sleep. That was measured not apples, oranges, or bananas, but in hours. The average amount of sleep per hours. Per night, right there. Okay, and I also want to make sure that while I'm here, I give my horizontal axis a title. So here it could just be gender. That's the boys and the girls. And my vertical axis, that's the y-axis, the dependent variable, that is going to be average sleep, spell sleep right, per night. And again, I'm going to put the units right there, average amount of sleep per night in hours. Now, the only thing that I would want to change here is my graph is kind of taking up this whole space. So one thing that I might want to do is instead of having it way up here toward the top, I can click on my vertical axis. And on the vertical axis, my minimum could still be 0. But if I change the maximum to something like 12, then it's going to scoot it down. It's going to move it down where I can have a better picture. And that's what you want. You want, your data to be represented in the middle of your chart, not too much above, not too much below. I usually like to have an overlap of about 20% or so. This was a little bit over 20%, so probably a little bit too much, but there we go. So I take and I've finished my graph here. Okay, you're going to add it to a doc. So all I have to do is click the snowman. I want to copy the chart. You have your own document here. So you're going to go in and you're going to paste it. Okay, and you want to do linked, paste link to spreadsheet so I can see where you came from. Where did the data come from? So paste it in there. And we have it, okay? And that is a nice, pretty graph. And your table, you could do the exact same thing. If I wanted to take table 1, let's get this out of the way. Go away, graph. If I wanted to take table 1 and paste it in there, I just copy the whole thing. Again, paste linked. And there we go. My title is in there. Not necessarily the prettiest. I might even go in and I could try to merge these so that it'd be a little bit prettier. Can I do that here? Probably could if I keep messing with it. Table, merge cells. I just think that looks a little bit nicer. And then I do the exact same thing with table 2. I go in and I didn't put my title. So I always want to make sure I have my title included with it. I'm just going to make that a cell up here. Paste it in. Copy it. Back to my doc. Paste again, paste linked. Format, table, merge cells. And if you see, I didn't label my columns, so I can do that pretty easily. I'm going to go in and I'm going to go insert row above, and I'll be able to add my gender. and average sleep. And keep in mind, I measured in hours. And there we go. Got table 1, table 2, and I have my nice, pretty bar graph. Okay, for the rest of your data, they're not going to be categories. They're going to be a little bit different. So what type of graphs are we going to create here? What is the relationship between height and shoe size? For this one, I am going to create a scatter plot. Okay, I did the average just because I was curious about it down here. But for this, it's going to be a continual X of height and a continual Y of shoe size. How does X relate to Y? How do they correlate, which is something we'll learn later. So that's going to be a nice scatter plot, one of my favorite types. So, we create the graph here, and we're going to have a scatter plot. And the same thing, I would go in and I would take the horizontal axis and I'd make it a little bit wider, maybe 135. And if you see, this is crammed up here on the side. So it looks like, each one of these is worth 5. Looks like this is 170. So I'd probably put it 175 or so. And so that is probably a little bit too much. Maybe 138 and 172. So again, there's no precise way to do it. It's just the way that it looks. And personally, I like it to be a little bit further down, but we can leave it alone if we want. Again, this is not a very good title. It can be the exact same title as your table. That's easy peasy. So I go in here, I'm going to copy that. And I can either edit it through the snowman or I can just double click and I paste in my title here. What is the relationship between height and shoe size? Oh my gosh, looks like I pasted a whole table in there. Like an actual table, not just the title. Let's see if I did it right this time. There we go, height and shoe size. Shoe size here, height and the units, good. And if I wanted to, we'll definitely do this later, but I can go in and work with the series and I could add a trend line, which is super useful. And that shows me as the height increases due to the positive slope of this trend line, so does the shoe size. Okay, here for hunger. Hunger, that was a super fun one to do because we had all these different people and their hunger levels from 8 o'clock until 3 o'clock. And I used 24-hour time so it wouldn't repeat back on me because, 1500, that will be 3 o'clock. So if I put 3 o'clock, it might occur before 8, which would not be nice. But I found my averages here. And this type of graph, what I was going to do is I was going to create a line graph. Okay, if I have a continual variable such as hunger level and that hunger level is changing over time, a continual variable changing and especially over time, then that is definitely going to be a line graph. Okay, so I would put here average hunger level and give it a nice title. I'm going to go ahead and copy this because I know I'm going to be needing it. So I copied and I highlight what I need. I'm going to go here. I'm going to insert my chart. And it created a scatter plot. Now I don't want a scatter plot. I want a line graph. So there we go. Again, go in and make that title prettier. You don't want to just leave the verses one. That's not very good. Okay. Whoops. There we go. What is the relationship between time of day and studio? Hung. Nope. Hung. H-U-N-G-R level. And there we go. Make sure we call it a graph. I think this is like the third one on my homework. So graph 3. And there we go. Paste it in. I could probably extend my time over a little bit in the same way. So I go in, I click. I want my horizontal axis just to be a little bit wider. And so I could put like 0.750, and it's going to stretch it out just a little bit. It may be 1550. Oh, yep, there we go. And so just so I can see the whole thing there. So there is a nice line graph. Again, it's a continual X, and it's one variable, so hunger level changing, especially over time. All right, and then pets, kind of a fun one. For my pets here, I counted everybody's information, and then we went in and we counted it all together. We processed that data, so the amount of cats, the dogs, the amount of axolotls, and the amount of fish. So I go in and I highlight, and I tell it to make a graph, and what is it going to do? Well, that's definitely not what we want. We're wondering parts of a whole. We're wondering percentages. So that's going to be a pie chart. But if you notice, my fish don't even occur. Well, let's click on pie and see what happens. Again, there's no fish. So what is the deal here? Well, if you notice, somebody put the units, okay? We only want to put the units in the top here. So this is number of pets. So we're just going to take out fish, see if that helps. And there we go. Our fish are going to appear. And I'm going to go in and give it a proper title, not just number, but then I copy it and paste it, and that is your homework. Okay? So give the tables, give the graphs, make sure our graphs have a nice title that is descriptive. It has the independent variable here, which is gender, and the dependent variable, which is average hours per sleep. Make sure everything's labeled. We include units, and it's nice and proportional. All right, I hope that was helpful. Have a wonderful day.